beautiful music and the teamwork. And thank you all for being here. Our theme for October is unity, and our value is I cherish the human family. Today's message is cherish our spiritual family. Russell Anthony Gibbs wrote in The Principle of Oneness, choose to love every facet of yourself unconditionally. You are a complex, multi-dimensional being, and loving yourself requires identifying, accepting, and loving all of your seemingly separate parts. Your personal self, your broader self, which means other people, the balance of the physical world, and the collective universal God. Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh said that the second coming will not be an individual. It will be within communities. In his book, The Art of Being, on page 32, New Thought minister and author Dennis Merritt Jones wrote, I believe there is something within each of us that is aching for authentic spiritual connection. To actually know what God's presence feels like. Spiritual community is where this happens. Why? Because it creates an environment where everyone feels embraced by the loving presence of God. It magnifies this experience. Each one actually becomes a reflector for the other, magnifying God's magnificence and love. Let us affirm the truth of oneness together. Everything that lives manifests and proclaims the glory of God. I love and cherish it unconditionally. Yes, that includes my personal self and my broader self. Everyone and everything else. I cherish the human family.
Those quotes are just really touched me deeply. So how many of you here have telekinetic powers? Well, if you do, raise my hand. This is just a reminder. We laugh at these kinds of things, but the truth is each one of us has indwelling within us amazing creative power because of who and what we are. We are multidimensional beings. This physical vessel that we walk around in is just the tip of the iceberg of just so much goodness and power and creativity, and it blows my mind every time I think about it, because we're told by the ancients that we're made in the likeness and image of God, that we are individualized expressions of the Most High. And so I have something else I'd like to share with you. This is actually, I don't know how many of you know who the British satirist Douglas Adams is. It's, I think, Monty Python and things like that. But anyway, he said, there is a theory which states that if ever anyone discovers exactly what the universe is for and why it is here, it will instantly disappear and be replaced by something even more bizarre and inexplicable. There is another theory which states this has already happened. And when I read that, I like to search the internet for some different things. I immediately thought of quantum physics. Because think of those scientists who first discovered all the crazy things that are going on at the quantum level follow different laws than in this physical world. A realm of not actually at the quantum level, you realize there is no such thing as matter. What there is there are all of this. There's this one unified field of energy, and they have this thing called string theory that says they're just a bunch of strings of energy, and these energy strings are in constant flux, which means they continually change their vibrations. And then they discovered that by observing energy, it turns into a particle. A particle being a piece of energy or a bit of energy that has collapsed into a lower vibration, which we call form. We've named it form. And our five senses are designed to pick up those lower frequencies. I mean, think about that. Bizarre and inexplicable, right? It's such an amazing mystery and such an exciting time to live in, when we're seeing the intersection between science and mysticism, what the mystics have taught for so many years. I just love it. And the book that I've been reading, it's not a very big book. It's called The Oneness Principle. And if you check into the newsletter, you'll see it, a copy of it. But it's called The Oneness Principle by Russell Anthony Gibbs. And so what we believe then to be human bodies and animals and plants and minerals and the cosmos and this beautiful planet Earth, solar system, is really an intricate illusion fabricated by consciousness, our own combined with our collective consciousness, which means that 99.999% is space. I'm taking all of this information from that book that I just mentioned, that has a lot. There's a big section in there on quantum physics, explained for those of us who are not quantum physicists. Bizarre and inexplicable. So all of our troubles then arise from believing this illusion of separation. And so our freedom lies where? In realizing our oneness. That's where our freedom, that's the truth that sets us free. There's only one life. There's only one thing happening here in individualized expressions. And there is, at the quantum level, no separation between any of us, even though it appears to be that. And I love the way Ernest Holmes explains it. He says, we are points of consciousness in the infinite universal mind. And we are full participators then in the co-creative process of this thing that called human experience in the cosmos. It's pretty awesome to think about that. Ernest Holmes, in a book called This Thing Called You, says you are one with the creative genius back of the vast array of ceaseless motion, this original flow of life. Your soul belongs to the universe. Your mind is an outlet through which the creative intelligence of the universe seeks fulfillment. I'm going to say that again. Your mind is an outlet through which the creative intelligence of the universe, and you can call it God or Buddha or Allah or whatever, but it's an outlet through which that creative intelligence of the universe seeks fulfillment through creation, right? And I love that quote by Dennis Merritt Jones that Jennifer just read, because it reminds me of why spiritual community is so important to my heart and my soul. So beautiful. It's because we're all aching for authentic spiritual connection, to experience the presence of God. Anybody, I mean, does everybody identify with that? Isn't that what we're all aching for? Is to experience the presence of God. And what spiritual community does, because of our high intention and because of the vision that continues to pull us forward, is it keeps us honed and focused on why we're here together. And so we show up as love for each other and support for each other. And what that does, we magnify. We actually magnify this thing called love in each other's presence. And I was thinking of those great big huge magnifying dishes that they use for the spotlights that make it go soaring up into the way up into the air. And we act like that for each other, beautiful reflectors for the light that we are in spiritual community. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go quickly, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. If you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And to me, this speaks to the lessons that we can learn from the geese. This is something I shared quite a long time ago, but it definitely is worth readdressing today as we focus on the topic of we cherish our spiritual family. So this is actually from Chicken Soup for the Soul. Lessons we can learn from the geese. So one of the things that I like to focus on is that geese, when they fly south, and this time of year they're flying south and sometimes they fly north, but this time of year they're going south. And when they fly in V formation, there is a principle that takes place in which the uplift from the one in front makes it easier for the one immediately behind it and behind it and behind it. And so when they're in V formation, they're in a very strong position to travel really far, much farther, like 71% farther than they would if they flew alone. It's a pretty powerful principle to think about, and that these animals have the instinct to do this and support each other. So it reminds me of the V in the Signs of Mind symbol. I think it's, well, anyway, the Signs of Mind symbol, the V. You know, this symbol is about the creative process on the universal level and on the individual level. It's this, you see, it's divided into 3 quadrants, which means 3 aspects of how the creative process works, or how universal mind or our creative mind works. The top is spirit, the center is universal law, and the bottom is the actual physical universe, the form or the experience that shows up. So thoughts descend into universal law and become things. And we've learned from the quantum physicists that thoughts reduce the frequency of what we observe, right? And becomes form. So that's it. So the V symbolizes the descension of spirit into form, so that we're able to observe it with our 5 senses. So I'd like you, as I go through these different lessons, I would really love for you to think of all the evidence that you have of these showing up in our spiritual community. Okay? And in yourself, how do you participate in this? So as a bird flies then in V formation, what we said is that there's greater 71% greater flying range than if we fly alone. So our lesson from that is, by experiencing God's love as community and having a common vision, we fly faster, farther, and easier together. Faster, farther, and easier together. That's lesson number 1. So notice in your own life how your being a part of spiritual community has supported you in growing faster, going farther in consciousness than you maybe had when you would try to do it alone. I mean, I know that's really true for me. It's made a huge difference. I've been involved in this teaching since 1990. And the person that I was back then, I don't think you would even recognize at this point in time. I mean, I've made so many changes and I continue to grow. And whenever anything is like getting in my way and I can feel the static and so on going on, I can feel the emotional reaction, I immediately do my spiritual work because it lets me know there's a false belief that's operating and I need to deal with it. And I do. And I do. So it's a continuing process and it's a continuing awareness of what's going on within us. So, lesson number 2. When the lead goose gets tired, it rotates back and another goose takes the lead. So, our lesson then is it's sensible to take turns doing demanding jobs. Over time, a really healthy community is one in which we play many roles. Sometimes we're the leader, sometimes the follower, sometimes the witness, sometimes the bridge between parties. The main thing, though, is that healthy community involves shared responsibility. Are you balanced in your giving and your receiving in the spiritual community? That's for you to think about in your own mind. Are you only giving? Well, that will result, we know, in severe burnout and resentment. And for those who tend to overgive, a genuine no is more loving than a dishonest yes. Saying no can give someone else an opportunity to give. And are we expecting others to do all the work? Well, what I know to be true is that we tend to be happier if we contribute in some way to the health of the community and the well-being of the community. So that's lesson number 2. Lesson number 3 is geese honk from behind to encourage those up front to keep on going. And our lesson for that is, do you honk words of encouragement and gratitude to those in the community who are doing the work and who are giving? Or do you complain and criticize? So this reminded me of something that we've used in this community before, which we call Go Direct. But this was part of the whole Go Direct thing. We have in our community something called Go Direct, which means that if you have an issue with someone, you go directly to the person that you have an issue with instead of telling everybody else about it. Because we know what happens with that. So Socrates actually had a test for gossip. So one day in ancient Greece, a man came up to Socrates and said, "I have something to tell you about your friend." And Socrates says, "Hold a minute." He said, "Before you say anything, I'd like you to put it through what I call the triple filter test." And he said, so the first one is what you're about to tell me about my friend something good? And the man thought about it and he said, well, no, actually not. And so Socrates says, so you're about to tell me something that's bad about my friend. Is it true? And the man thought about it. That's the second filter. Is it true? And the man thinks about it and he goes, I'm not really sure. He says, so you're about to tell me something that's not true and something not good about my friend. He said, well, there's one more filter, and the last filter is usefulness. Is what you're about to tell me useful? Is it useful? And he thought about it and he said, actually not. And so Socrates said, so it's not true, it's not good, it's not useful, then why even tell me? Right? So it's important to think about these things. Because the habits can come from childhood, they can come from our culture, and so learning to break those cycles is really important. And to this, what I would like to add is the word enthusiasm. And do you know that the root of enthusiasm is entheos, which means God within? Enthusiasm, God within. Isn't that cool? So when we enthusiastically support one another, when we enthusiastically encourage one another, enthusiastically thank one another, and appreciate one another, then we are expressing God's love. We are expressing God's love. So, what I want to do is say how much I deeply appreciate all of you, each and every one of you. Your beautiful lights, your shining faces, the talents and abilities that you share, the financial abundance that you share that allows our community to be in this beautiful building and to have these amazing musicians and our beautiful staff and all of the things, all of the furniture and equipment and everything that we've accumulated over the years. It's because of you. And some of our people I know aren't here, but you and our community. It's our wonderful community. I truly cherish all of you. I cherish our beautiful spiritual community. I really, really do. So I'm going to invite you just to turn to somebody and share with them enthusiastically the way in which you appreciate their contribution to this community. So find somebody. If you're a husband and wife, find somebody else. I love both of you, and I so appreciate what each of you give to this community. It's such a bright light, and I'm so excited about the house band. I could just yeah, 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 yeah. I'll give you more time when we have our luncheon. You have more time to go around and share with other people how you feel. So when we do that, when we gratefully thank people and appreciate them and acknowledge them, what do we do? What are we doing to our vibration? Yeah, we're lifting our vibration into the higher frequencies. And what we learn from universal law is when we do that, we attract more good into our lives because we're a vibrational match for that good. And what else happens is that we are creating a community of authentic connection and love. We are creating a community that we truly cherish. We're able to magnify and reflect God's love back and forth to each other, and it just builds and flows and grows. So that was lesson number 3. Lesson number 4 is when a goose gets sick or is wounded, 2 other geese join the goose to help and protect it. They stay with the fallen goose until it is able to fly again or until it dies. So our lesson is that we as spiritual community stand with and for each other in challenging times. Our ministry of prayer is a continued support and Reverend Linda leads all of us who make hospital visits and things like that. So um, that's also a part of community, is caring for one another in challenging times. Our classes are wonderful support systems, supporting our spiritual growth, but also supporting each other through challenging things that are coming up in our lives. Our spiritual growth circles operate in the same way. So any way in which you can deepen your or working with a practitioner, so powerful. Working with a prayer partner. These are all ways in which I encourage you, if you're not doing it already, to connect in deeper with community, to not only receive support for your growth, for your expansion, for your unfoldment, for your challenging times, but also to be a support to others, to be that loving support. So let us cherish this beautiful spiritual community together, our beloved spiritual family. Let us enjoy the uplift of God's love and magnificence as we fly together by, and here are the four again, continuing to keep our eye on our common vision. And we have a more detailed vision that's out in the fellowship hall that I encourage you to read every time you come in so you stay connected with it. But the one that we say, the intention that we say every Sunday, is the essence of it. And the real essence of it is we are here to be the presence of love, co-creating heaven on earth. And to that, I'd like to add the one for Centers for Spiritual Living, a world that works for everyone. It's possible when each of us stay focused on that vision. So that's keeping our eye on the common vision, sharing responsibility. Look around and notice if somebody's giving a lot and see if maybe you can step in. Maybe there's some skills and talents you can offer. So shared responsibility, appreciating, thanking, and encouraging one another like we just did, and standing with and for each other through challenging times. And I wanted to add one of my own to this. I'd like to add, have fun and laugh a lot. After all, I love this, angels fly high because they take themselves lightly. Right. So it's important to have fun, not to be too serious. And so it's now time for a beautiful song. Yeah. Thank you.